Hi, I'm Chuck Sloane. I'm the Ombud here at the University of Washington, and I'm joined this morning by...
I'm Emma Fan. I'm the Associate Ombud for University of Washington.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We're excited to do this and answer some questions and provide some more information about our office. I'll give you kind of a quick intro at the beginning. The Ombud office, essentially we're a resource to students, staff, and faculty. We assist you when you're in the midst of a challenging situation. Our office is unique at the university. We provide a confidential, safe space to talk about your situation. We help folks clarify what their goals are. And ultimately, when you leave our office, you'll have a plan that empowers you to move forward. We enjoy the work we do, and we're excited to answer any questions that you may have for us about the Ombud office. Taylor, do we have any live questions coming in?
Looks like not yet.
Not yet? Okay. So we did put together some frequently asked questions that we get about the Ombud office. First one, what is an Ombud? That's a good question.
Yeah, and one that I'd say comes up for our office fairly often. First thing to know, Ombud is not an acronym. This is the full word. It's short for ombudsman, which is a Swedish term. I don't want to go into the history because we don't have time, but just to let you know, it's been a term that's been in use since the 1800s, so it's got a long history of being both on college campuses and in other institutions, particularly in government, for a long time. So, but primarily our role is about being confidential and informal, a safe place that people can come and talk about questions or concerns with their work at the university, schooling at the university, anything else about their life here, and again, challenges that they may be facing that they're not sure how to proceed with.
Yep. And at the University of Washington, our office, the Ombud office, we serve all three campuses, so Seattle, Bothell, Tacoma, plus UW-Med, plus Harborview. And like Emma said, we handle individual cases, so if you come in or you refer someone to our office, we'll assist you individually. And we're also keeping an eye out all the time for any sort of systemic or broader challenges that may be at the university. And we look for ways to kind of report that back to leadership or folks who can help us improve the university moving forward. Any questions coming in, Taylor?
Not quite yet. Can we move on to your
All right.
next prepared question?
Let's do it. So can you give an example of a case? Want to take a shot at it?
Yeah, sure. So I work primarily with our student population, so undergraduates, graduates, some postdocs, some residents, fellows, those kinds of folks. And had a graduate student come in recently who was feeling a little lost. Had been working in his lab for a while, felt like he just wasn't quite making progress, wasn't quite hitting at the questions he wanted to hit at, and really wasn't meeting the expectations. And the expectations themselves of the lab weren't really that clear. And so one of the things that he and I worked on was really coming up with a plan to either have a conversation with his advisor and prepare for a conversation about expectations, or to develop those expectations on his own and be ready to kind of present a fully, ready-to-go work plan that he could then work off of with his advisor's approval without having to wait for some of those things to be fully enumerated for him. And so, talked with him a lot about mentors and what a good mentor looks like and what he wanted from a mentor. Talked to him about who within the department maybe could be a resource to him and subject matter expert, or even just, good research practice expert that he could work with. So kind of helping him develop more of a mentoring team, which I know is something a lot of our graduate students can really benefit from. So worked on that, was able to have him develop his own work plan and get moving forward.
Yeah. That's a good example. One of the challenges we have is that we work with probably 100,000 plus folks, and we handle 600 or 700 cases a year. So every situation is a little bit different. So when we do provide an example, that's not the only thing we do, but I think it's a good example of the sort of work we do. The work we do is intended to be confidential. So Emma intentionally kind of changed some of the gender and context there to make sure that we protected the anonymity of the person we were working with. I guess maybe I'll share just really briefly. We do also work with faculty and staff. I was working with a faculty member the other day, and they had to challenge one of their students. I can't remember if it was a graduate student or an undergrad, had been the victim of a cyber attack. And they were trying to navigate that to best support the student, also best support their lab that had somehow kind of been pulled into this. I was able to work with the student, with the faculty member, actually with another person in their department to try to respond as professionally, successfully, in a supportive way to address something that I think was really scary for everyone involved. Kind of being a victim of cyber stalking or cyber attack. You don't really know how to respond. Every situation is a little bit different. And so that was another place where our office was able to assist in kind of navigating a challenging situation. Taylor, any questions coming in?
Not yet.
All right, I'm glad we put some together.
I know.
So what are our backgrounds?
Yeah, sure. So I have a background starting in probably the closest related thing to this work is starting in higher education. So I began at a community college, and I worked with some new folks to the school who were navigating both, they were welfare recipients, so they were navigating sort of federal systems and welfare requirements, and navigating a community college system for the first time. So my role was to really help them enter that system successfully and meet both their welfare requirements and their higher ed requirements. So a lot of first-gen students, a lot of people who'd never stepped on a college campus. So that's where I started, and from there, in that work was finding a need for dispute resolution skills. So I went on to do some work in volunteer mediation for one of our dispute resolution centers here in Washington State, and eventually moved down to California and did my master's in dispute resolution at Pepperdine. And so from there, I was able to return back to Seattle, which is my home and where I wanted to be, and mentored under Chuck's predecessor, and have been able to stay on in the office ever since. So I've been kind of grateful to have the higher education background in helping students kind of start at a campus and start with a big system and help them figure out how to move forward.
Yep. And Emma is a huge asset to our office. She works predominantly with undergrad and graduate students, although also with staff and faculty. Emma is one of our kind of key points of contact, especially at the Tacoma and the Bothell campuses. Myself, my background, essentially I went to graduate school for clinical psychology. I was studying PTSD and marital therapy, and to get better at those things, I started volunteering on the side, similar to Emma, at a dispute resolution center, and I was trained in mediation, and I loved it. And so once I finished up my master's, I decided that, well, maybe I'll try to do the mediation thing full time. So I started working for Multnomah County down in Portland, working for the county executive's office there doing mediation. Later worked for Snohomish County, and then was deputy ombudsman at King County, and worked there for a number of years assisting King County residents, and then came over to the University of Washington, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago. So essentially my background is working in really large organizations, assisting in dispute resolution, and I also have a background in executive coaching, which comes in helpful as we try to assist individual clients. And how are we doing on time? There we go. Perfect. All right, any questions coming in, Taylor?
Nothing yet. I'll
All
go
right.
to your
Don't be
next
shy. Send in questions if you have them for us. So what happens in a meeting with our office? I'll take a shot at it.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, we do work with so many folks, students, staff, faculty at the campuses and the medical centers. So every situation is a little bit different. Emma and I have found it to be really helpful to have a standard process for our meetings. Even though every situation is different, we have a framework that we apply to every meeting that we have. It's pretty simple though. The first step is we essentially ask who you are and what you do and what your situation is. We ask a lot of questions. We try to listen kind of fully and understand quickly what's going on. And then once we have a sense of who you are and what your challenge is, we jump over to the more important phase, which is what do you want to see happen? What are your goals? We get really clear on what your goals are. And from there, we've established kind of what's happened in the past, what you'd like to see happen in the future, and we can talk about what are the next steps, the options, the game plan to get you closer to your goals. And so those are the 3 steps that we go through in every meeting. Typically when someone comes in to meet with our office, they meet with either Emma or myself. We do have office space in the hub on the 3rd floor, and we're available on Tuesdays in Tacoma, Thursdays in Bothell. Sometimes I screw that up. And also available by appointment at either of those locations on other days. We're available at UW-Med on Thursdays and Harborview whenever by appointment. So what we really try to do is be as approachable and available to you as we can be.
We also, I should say, have phone availability, so if it's easier to call in instead of coming in, we're open to that. And we have Skype. And so if we need to do Skype, if you are internationally, and I know I've worked with both students and staff internationally, we're happy to work on that. We're happy to think about time zones. We know that the work of UW happens both here in Seattle, in the Pacific Northwest, but also more broadly and globally. And so we want to be available to that as well in whatever format makes sense.
Yep. And if you reach out to our office to schedule an appointment, we're typically able to get you in that week. We recognize that folks reach out to the Ombud office when you're in the midst of something that's really stressful. And so we try to respect that and be really responsive to ensure that you can come in quickly so that we can have a productive conversation to move you forward. Any other questions coming in? Should we try another one of our
Nothing yet. I'll go to your next question here.
Thanks, Taylor. All right, how does the Ombuds differ from other resources at the university? So sometimes we get this question about the counseling center, about advisors for students for sure, about human resources for staff and faculty. Do you want to take a first swing at this?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, I think for the counseling center in particular, and kind of thinking about that as a resource, especially for students, is to say we and our office and the counseling center are both confidential resources. And so when you come to either office, you have a confidential space, a safe space to share your concerns. And know that those concerns will stay in the office. There are some limitations to that, but either of our offices would share those with you. So that can be confusing for students. But I think the major difference is, the counseling center is really set up to work with you on kind of longer-term mental health issues, whether that's stress, anxiety, depression, any other kind of mental health challenge you might experience. Our office is really set up, as I think about it, to be situationally responsive to whatever situation that you find yourself in, whether you need coaching, mediation, again, kind of individual strategies and planning, individual resource identification for different places you might be able to go. So we're more set up to kind of handle those situations, and our institutional knowledge is more set up to kind of work with a situation and identify resources that might be available to you.
Yeah, and I think a good lens for our office, or a good way to kind of understand what we do, is that we're an additional resource to you. I think the President's Office, leadership at the university understand how challenging it can be to navigate, being a student, being a staff, even being a faculty member at the university. So the Ombud office exists as an additional resource. We don't replace advisors or the counseling center or human resources. We work in partnership with them oftentimes on cases, and we're really another place for you to go. It can be helpful early on in an issue to have someone to sit down with to kind of get a different perspective. It can be helpful when you're in the middle, maybe, of working with one of these offices to figure out how to best describe and understand what you want to see happen. And sometimes it's kind of at the tail end of a situation when you're trying to figure out how to kind of resolve something in the best fashion possible. So we work with these folks. We're also an additional place for you to go as you try to navigate the university. How are we doing on time, guys? All right. Any questions coming in, Taylor?
Nothing so far.
Okay. Have we gone through our stock questions?
Yeah, I think we have. I think one of the other things you and I talked about discussing was kind of some of the challenges we're seeing here at UW for this coming year, and kind of what are we seeing contextually right now. So that was, I don't know if we want to go into that or if we want to tackle something different. But I know one of the things that I'd shared in my work with students in particular is I think that students are very sensitive to, and certainly our whole campus is sensitive to, political climate right now, to challenging discussions that are happening throughout society, and that college campuses in particular seem to sit at kind of an intersection of academic freedom and safety and inclusivity. And so trying to balance both so that we both say folks can and should come and speak and share their views on our campus. Some of those views may not fit in with our campus values of inclusivity. And so one of the challenges, I think, for our campus, for students, for faculty and staff, is trying to figure out how to strike that balance. And students are getting a lot of pressures from outside forces. And I think they're just aware of societal issues really acutely right now. And so being very aware and really wanting to raise their voices. And how do we, again, balance that with academic freedom and with safety of our campus?
Well, and I think you're right. It's a challenging time. It's complex, and kind of the option or the path forward is sometimes pretty unclear. And so we oftentimes work with students who feel like their voice is being marginalized, or feel like they're hearing voices, not hearing voices, but hearing things expressed in classes that they're uncomfortable with, and how they're going to respond, how they're going to address it, how they're going to bring that to leadership. We definitely help students and staff and faculty as well, actually, kind of navigate those situations and try to create as open and productive a space as possible. Another thing that we talked about, is essentially accessibility for faculty. I work largely with staff and faculty. I think ongoing challenge that I talk with faculty about is how to be accessible in a time of social media, text, all sorts of other avenues of communication, while also kind of protecting your own time and making sure that you're being responsive to students. And so I think that is an ongoing challenge. I think it has changed, kind of every year that I've been here, and I think the faculty are still trying to navigate how can they be as accessible as possible to their students.
Yeah. I think the last for our staff was, staff play a crucial role on this campus and on all campuses. They sit as advisors. They are sometimes the first people that a student will see when they come on campus. They organize and coordinate faculty. They get classrooms set up, right? They do so many things at this campus that aren't seen as part of the primary mission, right? That we're here to educate students, and so educating students involves faculty and students, and sometimes we forget all the logistical pieces. And so I think for staff especially, that feeling marginalized, feeling like their voice isn't being heard, they're kind of, this silent force again at our campus that oftentimes for students can make or break the experience, and oftentimes for faculty can help them be successful in research or academic, endeavors, whatever they're working on. So being a staff member here at an academic or any academic institution, I think is really challenging as well, and continues to be.
Yeah, and I think Emma and I are impressed, kind of on a weekly, sometimes on a daily basis, just by the commitment of our staff members, professional and classified, to the work they do and just to the university itself. But the reality is that also is a challenging space to be in, to need to advocate for yourself, sometimes as a professional staff member, to make decisions about your career, about the best way to kind of navigate the work that you have and the work relationships you have. And so we do work a lot with professional staff, classified staff around that to help folks kind of be successful in hopefully furthering the mission and the work of the university more broadly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Nothing yet. We're at 10:47.
Okay. Well, I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. I want to thank everyone who joined us live for kind of sitting down with us. We're available, at the hub. We're available by phone, as Emma said. Our phone number is up here on the board, 543-6028. Please call our office or email us to schedule an appointment if we can be of assistance to you. And keep us in mind. You never quite know when a challenge is going to pop up that it would be helpful to get a different perspective on, and that's what we do. We're able to kind of bring a background, education, and experience about the university, and honestly, thousands of cases we've worked on to bear in your situation and assist you. So thank you for the time.